the content's really good and cool. All right, I think we have got going. So, welcome everybody to another episode of Interviewing the Greats. Today we have a topic that I think is much needed, but almost controversial. And as much as a lot of people avoid this topic, we have actually I've got two names for you. I've got Frost, but I've also got Velvet or Violet. Velvet.
Yeah.
Which one do I call you? Where are we at with names?
Velvet Frost, yeah, is my full name.
Got you. Cool. So we've got Ashley on today, really, really renowned person in the healing space, helping both men and women understand how do we start to heal the inner child, heal the wounding of certain things that we've experienced throughout our life. So, Ashley, take the mic. Who are you, and how would you describe you do what you do?
Yeah, big question. First of all, thank you for having me on here. I really love your energy. Also from conversations. It's also nice to be speaking with a fellow Brit. Who am I? Well, yeah, my name is Ashley Velvet Frost. I'm an anger expert and emotional release practitioner and teacher. So I have been on this journey. That's a big word to say, but on this journey of personal development, let's say maybe 9, 10 years, and then deep in the emotional realm for the last 5 years. I came from the background of working in corporate, and I had a burnout in my late 20s, and basically didn't get any choice. But the healing world was like, okay, well, you want to get better, you want to learn how to get back to even baseline, not even to the point of thriving. I was like, how do I just start surviving my life? And I just followed the usual slippery slope that most people follow before they also come to find me with the emotions work. Is first I looked at the body, I looked at my nutrition, I looked at naturopaths, I looked at supplements, I looked at testing, I looked at breath work, I looked at life coaches, I looked at ice bathing. I just followed the little slippery route down until at some point I was like, maybe I need to look at emotions, because that's the thing that I don't understand. I'm a human and emotions are very human, but how are they happening? What are they? How do I navigate them? And for most of my life, I was really struggling with emotions. So high functioning depression, where of course you can function in a corporate job, but are you actually happy? Like, what is actually joy? What is actually finding vitality and fun in life again? And so my journey through a very deep depression in 2021 led me to anger, which is now the emotion that I rave about, talk about all day, every day. And yeah, it's for me the emotion that people are most scared of, confused by, they're most triggered by. We have very little healthy examples of what anger can look like in a good way. Is anger even good? We'll talk about that later. And yeah, that's essentially what climbed me out of the pit of mental health issues.
So I want to start with the question, because although the main premise of this is going to be about anger and understanding it and loving that space, and I'm assuming we're going to get onto inner child work around how much we need to listen to the inner child within all of us and understand why we show up as an adult, but we'll get onto that. What I would love to understand from yourself, Ashley, is understanding what was happening in the work that led to the burnout, and why you suppressed it or why you ignored it.
Yeah.
Or what led to ignoring it or suppressing it.
Yeah, there's actually two different types of burnout you can find. So there's maybe the first one is maybe a bit more obvious. It would be like this physical burnout of the body. So maybe you're working in a high pressure job, maybe you're working in sales, you're working long hours, like really where at some point the body is like, I'm done, you're doing too much, like I'm absolutely exhausted. And there's also then what I had, which is more of this slow burn, where it was like every single day that I was going into the office, a little bit more of my soul was dying. Until at some point, all of the things that I was trying to suppress, because it's like, okay, well, let me just change jobs, man. Then maybe it's just this job is the problem. But then you go to the next job and the same old shit follows you, the same conflicts inside or outside with yourself or with your colleagues, the same shit arises. And I was like, okay, I think it might actually be me. Maybe I'm the problem.
Maybe it's not you, it's me. It's the old cliche comes back.
So that's that, and a combination of a couple of other things. Like I caught a virus when my immune system was really low. I caught a virus in Japan. I had a nervous breakdown at the office after that trip that led to me having to be in bed for 2 months. And that was really the physical side of the onset of the burnout as well. So.
I think it's an important thing to quickly relate to. One of the reasons why I am, as a sales coach, funny enough, now moving towards a self-awareness piece first. It's called Self and Sales. Is the idea that I spent so many years in sales and I thought I needed to lie, and I thought I needed to be a character. I needed to be a certain way to sell.
Mhm.
And what I then started to battle with the question of, where does Alex begin and where does sales Alex begin? Like, where's the disparity? But there's a disparity between who I think I am and feel I am and who I am actually showing up as. And it created this conflict. And then in 2016, the world went to me, right, I've given you the money. You haven't learned how to handle that. I've given you the success. You haven't learned how to handle that. I'm going to take it all away and destroy
Yeah.
your understanding of success now and watch you rebuild yourself. So talk about, or share if you can, the point where you were like, F this, no more, and what that journey took. Like, because obviously you talked about Japan, 2 months in bed. Was that the breaking point for you where you were broken open and kind of like encouraged to grow out? Or what was the journey from when you actually stepped away fully?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd also be kind of curious. You don't have to say what age you were, but for most people, it seems to be like the end of the 20s, early 30s. There's this thing called Saturn return that basically happens where most people you ask, and if there was things in your life not in alignment, like not really authentic or truly integrated and like really suited to like what your life should be, then they tend to just crumble away, and sometimes in very dramatic fashion. That's also what happened to me. It was like from like one day to the next you have like a thriving trip, and then the next day you're like, I literally can't walk more than 5 minutes without like needing to sleep again. So it
Well,
was
mine was 2025. I was 25 years old, and
that's
what's
yeah.
really, oh, sorry, that's 2015. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'm going through it right now. Could we be gentle? No, it's not this year. 2015, and I remember it's the maddest thing because 2014 October, I did my biggest ever month. I made 10,350 odd quid, and it was mental because I'd like manifested it, and I was really into that. I was like, I'm gonna make 10 grand a month. I'm gonna take home. So I thought at like 24 years old or whatever it was, my dates are really off at the moment, and so just take that with a grain of salt. But I thought I'd made it, and then that December I met a woman, and I thought my life was on surface complete. And then within 6 months, I was 30 grand the wrong way. I'd lost the house, the cars had all gone, everything of success had been stripped away. And then I was left with the question, who am I now? Because I can't tell my parents what's going on. I'm a failure to society. I don't have a job, and I'm now like really the wrong way. So like this Saturn thing that you just alluded to was
Yeah.
2015, 25 for me, or 24, whatever I was. So, but talk to me about you, Ashley. Talk to me
Yeah.
about like that. Sorry, this is not about me. This is you.
It's all good. Yeah, so I would say that was more like the initiation. And this process continued until really the start of 2022. Like it's really
Mm.
that recent.
Oh
Like I
wow.
really
Yeah.
had to go through multiple years of like going back into work, changing my work, leaving the corporate world, finding the challenges of being then in the middle of COVID, trying to make entrepreneurship work, not having an idea how to do that, having to work in cafes, but then cafes closing because of all the lockdowns coming. So it was like I really had all these building blocks piling up against me that in end of 2021, I really hit the breaking point then. It was like I did not want to be here anymore. There were two occasions and I was house sitting in Mallorca at this beautiful villa, and I was like, I don't want to be alive. And if I don't want to be alive in this, the most beautiful house I've ever been at, in the most wonderful place, then like something is seriously wrong. And up until that moment, I'd been in this pity party. I'd been in this state of, woe is me, everything's happening against me, I have no control over my surroundings, I have everything is too much and I don't know what to do. And this state of helplessness and apathy was so present. And this is it's like a black hole, that kind of energy, this depression energy really pulls you down. It's like really hard to find the motivation. And a couple of months before, my previous business partner had gifted me a space at a retreat. And it's like a tantra retreat, but they did a whole day of anger exercises. Like they showed you all these
Mm.
different exercises, like the pillow yelling and pillow hitting, and we like 60 people in a room, all with their own mattress, like going at it. And for me, it was like really fun, and like a lot came up, but I didn't really know what to do with it. Like the word integration is used a lot in the healing world, but I didn't really know how to use that. I was like, well, I don't really, it doesn't feel natural. Didn't ever think about it in my day to day until I was really sat in Mallorca, and I really was like at this point where I was like, I need to do something. And I was like, okay, I mean, I've been sharing a bit on social media. I'm trying to make something of myself, trying to share my lessons whilst being in the lessons, which is hard to do because it's more like vomit as opposed to digested information.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I'm just going to record these anger exercises. Like, I'm just going to go up to the shala. the Charlotte 2 days before that I was sat there like, I don't want to be alive anymore. I was like, okay, I'm just going to get my phone, prop it up, film some of these videos. And I had to also do the exercises then. And I realized how much that they actually felt really nice to do. And that I would noticed more and more of this fire building inside over the couple of days. And literally I did that. And I got a phone call the next day from my teacher, like, do you want to come work for me? And like, then a job opened, and then I started traveling. And then basically my whole journey began, including focusing on anger. Like, it just happens from such a place of like, I wasn't like calculatedly finding the strategy of my niche. Like, it really landed, put so much in my lap that I didn't have to do any effort. I guided it with my teacher. I was like, hey, I know these cool exercises, could we maybe do this for the group? And then one of that group was like, hey, can you come on my podcast and talk about anger? And I'm like, well, what the hell do I talk about? Like, I don't know anything much about this. And my teacher was like, yeah, you're a human being. Like, you can talk about anger. That's all. The only qualification you need to talk about emotions is to be a human. And that's really how it all started. That was 2.5 years ago. And now here I am.
Now you're 25,000 followers and all over the world. So I have there's two things that immediately stood out to me. The first I want to ask about is the imposter syndrome of like, was there I don't want to put words in your mouth, so I want to ask, was there a feeling of like fraudulency of like, I can't share this stuff because I'm going through it? The second thing I want to know more about, you talked about the fire inside, and because of where I'm going to try and segue to in a minute is this idea of how to accept and love this anger. So could you just talk to me firstly about, you started this journey 2.5 years ago, and talk to me like how did you navigate this? Like, can I teach this stuff? Did it even come up for you? And then transition it into the fire of like learning to love that heat here, that anger, and let it out. Could you share a bit about those two things?
Yeah. So interestingly, actually, in 2021, I was doing my training for emotional releases, and I was like trying to get practice clients. And I remember even someone like, I came back from this training, and I was like, yeah, like a practice session. And they were like, how much would it be? I was like, yeah, 60 euros. They're like, that's too much right now. Now I charge like 500. So it's so crazy to see the shift in like how much can change in a few years. So I remember that before I qualified, and when I was still going through this depressive period, I even wanted to put on a workshop about emotional release. And I had the savage feedback from the assistant of my medicine woman, like, you're the last person I would go to for emotional release facilitation. And I was like, didn't have to be such a bitch about it. But actually, like, there was some essence to it, because it was all still swimming around in my field. What do I mean by that? It means that like, you can learn about something and you can understand it, but has it actually really landed in your body where you are like living and breathing the lessons that you've learned? And that's only when that really landed in my body is then when everything started unfolding of people wanting me to come talk about it. And I started posting, and I announced that I was focusing only on anger. And that started over the last 2.5 years to build the credibility aspect for it as well. And also just having done like over 400 sessions now with one-on-ones of anger and emotional release just builds you just learn so much more. So it's also just an energy you bring in. Like, I don't need to plan a session. I can arrive there even if I don't know anything about the person, and we know that beautiful stuff is going to happen. Whereas like 2 years ago, I would still be like, oh, I'm so nervous. What if it doesn't work? And it's like, there's no way for it to not work, because it's divinely perfectly happening.
Someone said to me the other day, because I do public speaking in front of like crowds of 80 to 200 people at a time, and someone said to me the other day, do you not get nervous? And I say, it's taken me 10 years I've had 10 years of nerves to get to the point where like someone could come to me now and say, Alex, you've got to deliver this piece on sales in 25 minutes, like after this interview. And I'd be like, oh, sweet, cool. Who's the audience? Let's go. So I just can tailor the message. So what I would like to know, though, is the fire, because one of the things I've loved about watching your content is this feeling into the body and accepting the emotion as it comes up, opposed to suppressing. It's one of the big salient points I've taken away from watching your Instagram is like, feel into what's coming up.
Yeah.
What's the fire you mentioned a couple of minutes ago, like feeling into that fire burning? What is that?
Yeah. So often with emotions, the way that our imagination works is actually pretty accurate. So I mean, you can think of sadness, and it's the same with like the Pixar movie Inside Out, like how they depict a lot of those characters with the colors. Like, sadness is also kind of watery because there's tears involved, and with anger, it's often depicted a lot like the fire. In Chinese medicine, it works with the liver energy, which is also this like very like hot energy. it's called, you can call it almost like the trump of the organs. It's like this big organ that takes up space and it's like really present, but it also filters. It's like detoxing your body. And the fire aspect, I love to imagine, is really just this like life force energy. So this fire that's like coming up from the base of the spine. Like I work a lot with Kundalini yoga in my retreats and in my sessions, because this is the natural flow of emotions and energy moving up the body or up the different chakras. Like the inclusion of Eastern medicine is very helpful with the approach of looking at energy and looking at emotions. And it's more like an allied approach. Like we're using psychology and you're using energetical concepts. So anger really is this fire that gets shit done. So it will burn down what is not needed, just like a volcano. It's going to burn down, cause destruction, but also what's left on a volcano is the most fertile soil that you'll find on this planet. So it's starting to reprogram how we view the fire. Like fires are not always bad. Same with
No,
like,
and this is where you talk about starting with anger. You have to start with this base of, say, root chakra, sorry, this pit of the fire is start there. So talk to me a little bit about the acceptance of that, and how does someone start the journey of feeling into that, accepting that stuff and listening? Like, because I used to describe myself as I feel numb. I feel like I don't feel anything. I mean, I'm not in, yeah, I'd say I'm indifferent. And
yeah,
that's almost the opposite of love, of like this idea of I don't care whether it goes either way.
yeah.
How does someone begin this journey? So like, don't give away your secret sauce, but like, how does someone begin it and to feel into the body?
Yeah, this journey it can be very slow. So I imagine there's probably a lot of people listening who are like, okay, I have no idea what this person's talking about. I don't know what energy is. I don't know how to feel energy in my body. Like, heck, a couple years ago, that would have been me. I'd never even done ecstatic dance or any form of like intuitive movement. So even simple things such as yoga nidras, doing body scans, practices where you are taking your conscious attention down from your head and in going on a little exploration. Like, how does it feel to be in my right shoulder blade? How does it feel to be in my right elbow? How does it feel to be at my belly button? Like, these yoga nidras are super beautiful practices of just getting out of the mind, because that's the first step. Once we can shut down a bit more of the mind and this very present ego that's doing a good job of protecting us, but a little bit too much of a good job, how can we, it's like they say, the longest journey you're ever going to take is the 18 inches from your head down to your heart. Like,
Oh
this
yeah,
is huge. These basic body
I'm gonna
awareness
write that down.
practices. You can find them on YouTube. Like, it's really not that hard to find resources for this, guided meditations of getting into the body. And this is really the first part, because there is no objective with this. It's not like you have to go into your body and find anger and you're going to yell or you're going to scream. Like, some people, it takes ages before they find the safety inside themselves to express more. So it's really can be a slow process. And what I encourage, like, breath work can be a really nice entry point for people of getting more used to their body being in a state of slight discomfort. We're always trying to lean into, it's not so much about accepting, it's okay, can I allow that this experience is happening right now? Can I allow that this thought is here right now? Can I allow that this pain in my shoulder is here right now? Can I allow that there's butterflies in my stomach? Normally we'd be like, oh, I don't want them to be there. This is weird. Okay. Can I just allow that there's butterflies here right now? Take a big breath into that. Can I allow that the butterflies are here right now? And this is really all it is. It's so effing simple. It's a state of noticing what's there, allowing it to be there, seeing what your body needs to do to move that through. Does it need to shake a bit? Do you need to move your hands? Do you need to like shake your body off? Like, really, it's sometimes just watching kids is actually the easiest way to get inspiration of how to regulate your nervous system. Because we've become conditioned, we're adults, we have a certain view of what it means to be a civilized and polite and not weird adult. And actually, like, can we unlearn all of that and just come back to like expressing like humans? So,
I've often thought, do we raise children or should they be raising us? Obviously not in certain ways, because children do sometimes do things that are not conducive to well-being, like putting knives
yeah,
in toasters
yeah.
and all of this kind of
They need
stuff.
healthy
And
boundaries. They need a healthy
health,
masculine container of
but
like, this is the rules and I can flow in between those rules.
yeah, exactly that. So The question I now have though is what happens if you don't do this stuff? Like, what's the repercussions if I go, I get what you're saying, but nah.
Yeah, so the majority of people come to me because they've been ignoring it for a very long time. And they come to me because they're either having physiological, so like actual body symptoms, or they're having emotional, psychological symptoms. So let's say majority of people coming to me are not feeling enough, or whether it's anger, whether it's sadness, there's almost this like deficit of energy happening inside of them. So for people with not enough anger coming to me with autoimmune issues, chronic fatigue. There's a lot of thyroid issues going on. It's like if you imagine anything in the body, osteoporosis, where there's really like the body has started almost like eating away at itself. It's like the body is attacking itself because this energy, which naturally wants to find its way out through expression, through words, through sound, through movements, is not being given that space. So you almost start directing that inwards. And that shows up then also with the emotional aspect. So depression is basically inward facing hatred, inward facing rage. There's this lack of drive, procrastination, this pessimism, this lack of the life force energy, this like vivaciousness that's just not present, which, yeah, you see a lot in modern society. Like everyone's gray and sullen and like not motivated and don't know what to do because the energy is not in balance in that way. And it can also be the other way, just put that in there. Like 20% of people I work with are also like having too much anger. So that's showing up in like blood pressure issues, liver issues, heart attacks. That's in the competitive energy, burnout, that like cocaine type personality energy is when there's the energy needs to be contained. They're letting too much of it out. And oftentimes under that is more that they're actually sad as opposed to that there's so much anger.
So on this point, then in a second I'll get on to kind of like understanding healthy ways to release it. Just to quickly relate, there is also I want to ask you about anger versus shame, because for me, one of the things I've had to overcome is like I want to feel the things that you're talking about, but the shame and the fear of what happens if I do, because anger, especially for the masculine, removing male female for a second, the masculine wants anger to be an outward thing. It's like the aggression out, punch, kick, break, scream, hit the pillow, the mattress, whatever, smash the tree up. It's then how's that perceived, and is it safe for the people around me? What are some of the really healthy ways for people to either set the boundary of anger or to express it so that we can actually hold that space for ourselves?
Yeah, I'm going to touch first on the shame aspect. Those people who are listening, there's an amazing book called It's Not Always Depression. And in that book, the author talks about the change triangle. So you can see really I think it's actually more this way. You can see the process which we run when there's a defense arising, and it goes to an inhibiting emotion, which is shame, guilt, anxiety, which is like a cover emotion basically for something underneath that. So shame actually isn't a core emotion. It's actually just like a blanket or a defense mechanism that your body puts to stop you feeling something underneath that. What I would say is that healthy expression of anger can be hitting a tree, can be hitting a pillow. The thing is that this anger work is coming really first and foremost in your own personal practice. Discharging the excess energy, coming to terms with the things that happened in your past, the grudges, the triggers that are arising all within you that get triggered by the external environment. So I in no way ever am condoning that violence, aggression is ever justified unless it's like a soul grievous attack. Like if someone's trying to like physically attack you. Like, of course, like if I, as a woman, if some guy is trying to like physically assault me, of course, I'm going to fucking punch him and kick and yell and use all of the aggression that's necessary because I have access to it. But let's say like 99% of the time, that's not actually necessary for majority of modern day conflicts, at least in the very safe Western society that we live in. Very rarely is it justified to be destroying something or punching something in retaliation. What I try to always encourage is that you can try this different perspective of, instead of reacting to something, can I respond to this? So not this like blind, what's the word? There's like a knee-jerk reaction where suddenly like this aggression would come out, because that is in is unconscious. Can I take a moment, a pause, a half a second to notice that I am feeling anger right now? I am not anger, because that's the ego over-identifying with the experience. I'm feeling anger right now. Okay, you're already starting to separate from the experience. You're already starting to notice that you, the conscious observer, are experiencing an emotion. And if the more practice you get with this, that space becomes way bigger. That you don't even need to
I want to
necessarily.
highlight something what you just did really well there is that from the other side of it, one of the main things I teach around sales is how we label and don't label, and we never use suggestive labeling, such as like you're saying this, you are this. What I like what you've just done there is, and what I've heard it as, is this idea of like, I never say, "Hey, Ashley, you're angry." I'd say, "Hey, it seems to me if can you help me here?" And it's this idea of removing you from the situation. You're not the anger. You are not doing this thing. There is something that's like a part of something, but removing your behavior from it, because you're not that. You're just displaying a version of it. Because then I'm
It's
not
parts
saying that
work.
you're.
Yeah.
It was what? Sorry.
You've heard of parts work and internal family systems?
No.
This would be amazing for you to read up about. I can email you a book that's very nice about this. So
Please.
indeed, this is the concept that we are not one. You are not one being in your psyche. There are
Yeah.
multiple parts of you that pop up at different moments of the day, different triggers, different scenarios. Sometimes it's actually very fun to list your parts that you know are actively present, like in your week. Like I have a different part that's present when I go to the gym. There's a different part that's present when I'm hungry. There's a different part, and I even like name them, give them characters. Like there's this little boy George who's 6, and when he gets hungry and he gets food and he's like, yeah, like super happy. There's like the seductive Ashley, there's the business Ashley, and there's all these different versions of me, these different personalities that exist, and they have different needs, they have different wounds that arise at different times. And this again is like separating away from the over identification. Like our ego loves to identify because that's how it finds meaning and purpose. Oh, I'm angry. Yeah, I'm so angry. That's my identity right now. I have something to latch onto, and I am worthy, and I exist, and I'm angry. It's like this self-gratifying energy, when in reality, it's like, no, like a part of me is feeling anger right now. Okay, part, hello, come sit at the table. What's up? Like, yeah, this person didn't respect me. It's like, okay, why is that bothering you? It's like, yeah, because my mom didn't respect me. And I'm like, okay, I see that you need something right now. What do you need? It's like, yeah, I just need to be seen. Oh, well, I'm here. I see you. Oh, okay. And then you can already just like self-therapize your way through feeling the feelings. That's still quite a mental process. As you can see, like I got really into character because that's actually when the body gets more involved, that you can give like physical manifestation to the parts and what they want to be like. Like, okay, this part is present right now. Like, how would this angry part sit? It's like cross my arms and scrunch my face up. And you can do this in your own practice in your room. Like, okay, like this part would actually really show itself with this facial expressions right now. And maybe it's going to like posture wise. And it's just like wants to have a little temper tantrum. And these are the simple things that are being missed by people who are just meditating, because you're still keeping it in a mental process, and actually getting the body involved is dissipating the energy, letting it go, that then you're left with a clear slate after.
I want to highlight a really quick point here, and I'm going to put a bit of a line in the sand of this interview. I'm going to ask the question. This is a rhetorical question for all listening and for you and I. When growing up, were you given the space to accept what you are talking about? Because what I'm listening to what you're saying, and it's taken me a long time to be able to listen to what you're saying and understand how that would show up for me. I'm immediately thinking about my conditioning of children should be seen and not heard. Don't upset, don't rock the boat, keep the peace.
Wow.
And then what that's created for me that I've had to kind of undo is this idea of actually these things you're describing, throwing the arms about, throwing these temper tantrums, listening to his body. These are all really valid things that you don't need to just be accepted by everyone, that you can express these things and it's fine. And what I think is an interesting point is this whole thing around like these emotions, you are not this thing. You are not just Alex who's always accepted and loved and always. At times you're going to do shit that is just an okay thing to express, providing it doesn't maliciously hurt anyone or all of these caveats. I understand all this, right? But the question I have for you is like, when in childhood were you ever shown how to actually do this? Which is not a fault of a parent or guardian or people around us. Generational trauma and all that stuff. I'm just, how does someone like start this journey in a simple sentence or two? Like, how does someone begin to start even just creating the space where this shit is like comprehensible for them?
Yeah. No, I love what you say, because it's true. It's not our parents' fault. People can also gaslight themselves. They're like, oh, well, my parents didn't know any better, so I shouldn't be angry at them and I shouldn't feel annoyed
Yeah.
at them. And it's like, yes, and that younger part of you still deserves to feel the disappointment or the frustration of not being loved or not being seen in that way. Like from my example, like I love my parents, but I definitely remember when I had temper tantrums and I was having throwing a fit, that they put me in the basement until I calmed down. Like I had to sit on the
Mm.
stairs and self-soothe myself to stop being angry. So no wonder I grew up not feeling like it's safe to express anger, because my younger parts of me are like, don't express it because you're going to get locked in a basement. Like that's conditioning.
Well, this is the incredible thing. So I saw an interview with I think it was John Cena or someone the other day. I can't remember who. I'm sure it was John Cena. And they said to
How
him,
do you
"Why aren't?"
see him though? He's invisible, right?
So it's I didn't see that joke coming. You blindsided me there. And so basically, right? Basically, he was basically saying, I'm sure it was him. He says they said the interviewer said, "Why haven't you got children?" And he said, "I'm not emotionally mature enough to hold space for a child." Right.
Yeah, I think
And I was
that's
talking to a friend of mine, Philippa, about this, and we were talking about having pets. And she was talking to me about how unloving it is to own an animal and to put your expectations on that an animal is going to behave different to how it is showing up and behaving. What I argue is that almost having children is an unloving thing, not to have the child itself, but to impose expectation onto someone that
yeah,
they did not ask for.
yeah,
Because there's a big thing. If I agree, hey, Ashley, I'm going to help you move, right? I then need to, as it's an obligation, if I help you move, I need to understand what a good move is to you and that we meet that need, because I've laid the expectation, I want to help you move.
yeah,
But a parent or child does not have the conversation of what do I expect of you as a parent? What do you expect of me as a son or a daughter?
yeah.
And I
And the
think
child's
it's
brain is not
unloving.
developed enough. Like they literally
And
cannot have the same conversation. They cannot have a therapized, rational adult conversation if they're 5 years old. They're a
but
child.
also bear in mind, like children below I think it's the age of 6 or 7, do not understand how to administer blame. So when you accuse them of something or when you blame them for something, there's the immediate default to go inward and blame self. I've done something wrong, which creates this thing of I am not accepted for who I am. And I think it's an incredibly important point to make for me. So, say that again.
That's when the inner critic is really formed. Like the inner critic is often the voice of one of your caregivers.
Yeah. And it's the biggest question is, okay, you've done this behavior. Who do you think is going to scold you for it? And it's not to say our parents did the right or wrong thing. It's not to blame at all. It's to understand that it's our job now to soothe the child in
Yeah.
the way that either we felt we needed to be held or that we would like to be held now or how
Yeah.
we would hold now. But it's such a big topic. I was listening to you talk and I was watching you, like you were in your body and you played the roles and all this stuff. And I was like, I was looking at you and I was thinking, fuck, I would love to have the confidence to listen to my, like, that's where you're at with that in terms of like feeling into that and being that. I wouldn't even know where to go with that stuff because I can see what you're doing and I can see the value of it,
This is the
but
question
it's
you also asked, like, how do you get started with this? And
yeah.
honestly, it really was not that long ago. Like 4 years ago, I'd never even like I used to do dance as a kid, but I'd never done like movement dance. And when I did my training, we are just doing like dance breaks. I'm like, what the hell? Like, how are you meant to just dance? Or like now I've like can do like yelling and pillow screaming in front of hundreds of people. And I was like, fucking hell, like if teenage Ashley saw this, she'd be like, that's really
What are
weird.
you
What are you doing?
what are you doing? Yeah.
So first and
So
foremost, if you're new to this as a listener, like give yourself grace. Like there's multiple things that you can do here. So things like my membership, the Academy of Anger, there's literally like hundreds of classes that you can do recordings of this that are guiding this, like vocal activation, movement classes, nervous system, relaxation classes, like whatever is really needed to kind of push your edges bit by bit. And if you do it on a recording, then no one's there and you can join a live call and then you can be around other people who are also new to this. You can have a session from someone doing somatic experiencing or emotional release or something where people are really giving you a bit more permission. Like my job in most sessions is just to give permission through example, just
So I
like
want
now.
to highlight something. I want to. I want to really quickly highlight something. I want to interrupt because I think what you just said something that I think is the most crucial thing of anything is determining what you want and finding similar minded people. Now, this is not for validation. This is not for kind of like, oh, I'll be accepted. If you are the environment you surround yourself with. I think it's research has come out now from 12 years old to 20 years old. 85% determining factor of your success or failure is your environment, be that in a physical location, but also the people you surround yourself with. So once your parents have done the guardian raising thing, after about 12, 14 years old, 85% determining of how successful you'll be will be the people you spend your time with, your environment. One of the biggest shifts for me, right, and this is why I had to add this bit in, the biggest shift for me was two things. I got mentors that have done what I want to go and do, right? So for me to learn how to interview and hold space for you today, I've done hours of listening to people that have run interviews successfully to be able to hold that space. Once you decide that you want to go on this journey that is so important that you're doing, the minute you get into that place, it's so important to be around similar minded people, but not for validation, not for acceptance, for the pure fact of you are your environment and you will become the average of the people you spend your time with. Any thoughts quickly on that, Ashley?
No, you said it perfectly. I'm to be honest, it's like, of course, like get help from people who've been through it already. Like that's
Yeah,
also why,
exactly.
like everyone coming to me is basically in the position I was in 2 years ago, and sometimes they're in really dire straits. Like I was also in dire straits, and it was helpful for me to be working with coaches and be working with healers that did survive. And then that's like I can speak. There's no we talked about this on our catch up last week, that there's actually just no imposter syndrome, because this is actually the first job I've had that's actually come through lived experience, and I know that it works because I'm literally living the fact that it works. So it's like the most authentic version that's happened of this kind
Yeah.
of.
So,
Yeah, it's really nice. And never go to someone who hasn't lived through the thing you're trying to heal.
well, this is so I run sales and marketing training, and all I do is I give away a lot of content for free because with this is your point, but in my world of sales and marketing, right? Of like most people are just trying to sell stuff, right? If you can really do what you say you can do, just give it away for free because people don't pay for the information. What they want to do is pay for the implementation. So it's not about, hey, this is how you do it. Just show me that you can do it consistently. Like just show up consistently. So I have a question for you, and this kind of leapfrogs into this next point. This is my last question in terms of like a structure. I loved one of the reels you shared about advice, unsolicited advice dressed up as compassion, because this idea of no offense, but I'm just trying to be a friend. But then when they don't accept that behavior, or when they don't accept it, they become the problem because they didn't accept your advice. Help me understand a little bit about the thought behind that content around unsolicited advice dressed up as compassion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this came as a byproduct of just being in so many healing spaces, even with my previous teacher, in these dynamics where you bring forward like sometimes a very valid comment or criticism, or you're just asking for feedback. And okay, not really asking for feedback, but like any other point where you are just trying to bring forward something and they come back at you with just like giving you advice back because they think that they know what is better for you. And actually trying to take on the responsibility of solving someone else's problem is in essence taking away the autonomy of that person to also make mistakes. It's the
Can you just
whole
say that again?
you
That
gotta record
because
that.
well, I just hit that point again in the
Yeah.
same way because I think you have just encapsulated what I teach over 3 years in a sentence. Say that
Very
again for us, please. That was great.
efficiency. Yeah,
I
so
needed you years
essentially
ago.
this is a huge aspect of why people are also in the healing industry, is because they're looking for someone to fix them. They're looking for a diagnosis, they're looking to be saved, they're
Yeah.
looking for the quick fix that's going to make them feel better. And the harsh truth is that actually the majority of this work is dirty, is sticky, is like down in the dark, in the mud, really finding your way and meeting all these like ugly, shameful corners, parts of yourself that you don't really want to look at. Now, if somebody else is coming in and telling you what you need to do, or they're telling you this is what's wrong with you, or this is what's right, or this is the way I think you should do this, even coming in and unnecessarily like comforting, all these things are essentially bringing away the capacity that you're developing to also be able to hold yourself through this, because that's the biggest lesson I had in this work, is like no one is coming. Like no one is coming. You essentially, like, of course there's support and you can lean on people, but we're all doing this journey of life alone. You're born alone, you're gonna die alone. And finding your way through the challenges that are arising, we're kidding ourselves if we're trying to wait for the next guru, or you're waiting for the next person, your teacher, the next doctor to tell you something that in essence you're going to just learn by going inwards.
I have a saying, which is, if I say it, it's sold. If you say it, it's gold. So in the sales world, I teach that you can't convince someone they need to buy anything. All you can do is help them think. Mm-hmm. And this conversation encapsulates that so much. So for me, I was diagnosed with ADHD at 12. That was good and bad, because then there's like, oh, I've got a problem, I can be fixed. But then I spent the next 10 years pretty much waiting for someone to come and save me. And then you suddenly realize, shit, there's no amount of pills or self-help books, or I call it the emotional masturbation of thinking, if I read enough, if I spend enough time with the right people, I'll be better and fixed. Yeah. Then that creates this kind of dichotomy of, well, I'm never broken, I'm just who I am, but I need to accept that dude or that gal. But then you're also waiting for the coach or the mentor or the guide to come and pick my hand up and say, hey, don't worry, I've got you. And then that's just the abandonment wound we've got from childhood of hoping our parents would do something for us that we didn't communicate or know we needed. So it's mega.
The healers. And I just want to add in, Alex, because you have to remember also, because with ADHD or with all of these aspects, like you have ADHD in a society that's judging it as bad, but there's so many superpowers in it. And that's the same. Like, we have to remember we're actually just highly evolved monkeys trying to survive in a very complex societal system that we've devised through evolution of humans. And I read this statistic the other day that in one day, in modern day time, we experience as much information as somebody in the Middle Ages did in their whole lifetime. In one day.
Well, let that sink in for a second. That's
no wonder we're stressed. No wonder people are exhausted.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we should just be like on the beach, eating grapes, hunting a bit, hanging out, going in the ocean, having sex. But yet we've developed taxes and bureaucracy and politics and pressure and social conditioning and all these things that's just fucking exhausting. Like, we just want to be in our body and enjoying ourselves.
Well, actually, there's gonna be a part 2, my girl, because like it's that there of like, because so, and by the way, I'm respecting your time. I appreciate we've got like 2 minutes left, so I'll give you this time back. Someone mocked me the other day because I don't work more than 3 days a week, for this simple reason of like, I want to be out in the forest. I want to be touching the bark of trees. I want to be in the dirt. I want to be jumping and climbing and playing as much as I can, because like, as I get older, I'm trying to find more ways to get back to being a kid. Yeah. And I love that you've just said that, eating grapes on a beach, playing in the sea, jumping around on rocks and all this stuff. It's mega. Final question of all interviews.
I want to just say also that anytime someone's mocking you for that, it's just like you're holding a big mirror back to them, that they're projecting a judgment onto you, and it's actually nothing to do with you. It's because they do not allow themselves to only work 3 days a week. And therefore, by judging you, they can outsource the responsibility of owning maybe the disappointment or the shame that they don't allow themselves to do that. Biggest tool I ever got, whenever people giving me like feedback or judgments, I'm like, I don't think this is about me. Like, do you have a problem with this? And they're like, oh, yes, I could never let myself work 3 days a week. Wow, thank you. I'm just like holding up a big mirror. It's basically my job.
So I love, there's a saying I love as well, which is how people treat you as a reflection of them, how you let them treat you as a reflection of you. And I think, wow, like that's, because remember, we are just, it sounds so cliche, but it's a good time for it. It's like, we are just the mirrors. How we show up to each other, what you trigger in me is what I see in myself. So like, you filled my heart with love on this talk here, of giving so much to me on this talk. And it makes me feel, oh man, so I can receive that. I can see your value. And therefore it makes me think, oh, maybe I'm doing similar things. And it's not a competition that I've got to one up you now, I'll do more. It's just a reflection of like, no, I'm in the right place. Yeah. So my final 2 questions of every interview, by the way, actually, thank you for 42 minutes of your life. Thank you. Final 2 questions are always the same. First thing is top 3 takeaways, not from this interview, but for you. in like bullet point form of like, do this, do this, do this, or top 3 takeaways, not to give you too much structure. And then there's a bonus curveball question that I've not prepared you for. So top 3 takeaways, shoot.
Top 3.
Yeah, or top 2. Top 2. Top 3.
Take at least one moment of your day to take a big old breath with a big sound outward. With the sound out to the moment.
Yep.
Number 2, have a look at your perceptions and judgments around the emotion of anger from upbringing, household, how it was interacted with. Just get curious as to the judgments you're holding about it. And number 3, stop taking things so seriously.
We're all going to die when none of it matters.
Yeah.
Actually, we'll do part 2, but I'll fly to Amsterdam, or I think you're in Amsterdam, Netherlands, right? I'll fly to Amsterdam and we'll do this in person. We'll find a cafe,
and we can actually show you some practical exercises and movements.
Oh,
and things
yeah.
for you as a beginner.
We'll start with that. So, final question is always the same. What is your favorite dessert? Unless you're off sugar, in which case, are you sweet or savory?
Something with apple, like apple crumble or something like this. Apple strudel.
Very nice. And custard or cream?
Love baked apples and baked pears, like with a bit like cooked in wine or something. That's my favorite dessert.
Oof. And a bit of cinnamon and vanilla.
Yeah, like wintry.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice. Well, in that case, 46 minutes. Ashley, I wish I could I'm going to give you a virtual hug.
I'll give you one back.
I appreciate you reaching out to you on Instagram. You came back to me. I appreciate the love, the care, and the advice you've given us today. So God bless you on your journey. I'll drop you a telegraph thing or telegram thing or whatever it's called, just to thank you. And by the way, I probably will try and arrange a part 2 because there's 2 or 3 things I want to just highlight and build on. But thank you. Enjoy your next call. Thank you. And I'll speak to you very soon.
Ciao, ciao.